All right, lots to say in here today, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get through it. First off, you can tell me what this symbol is. What are we looking at?
Boy Scouts.
United States flag. It is.
Scouts of America.
Boy Scouts of America, who are, as of this weekend, doing what? They're dropping the word boy from their label. Girls will now be eligible to join the Scouts of America, as well as boys, starting in the near future. The Boy Scouts have been in the news recently in the last few years because they did not allow gay Scout leaders up until about last year when they reversed that policy. And here's another step they are taking to be more, I suppose, inclusive to people of both genders. Okay, big stories for today. First off, Kanye West, ladies and gentlemen, showed up last week in the news. I don't know if he just hadn't been in the news for a while, but he decided to take center stage. First off, for his tweets with Donald Trump. So here he was, of course, talking about how much he loves Donald Trump. Showed us off his signed MAGA hat with 30 fire emojis, which seems excessive to me, but you know, it's up to you. And then Donald Trump, of course, responded by just yelling the word MAGA back at Kanye West, because that's the world we live in. And then all of this got followed up. Now the thing is here's the thing. Kanye West was fairly unpopular for doing this, mostly because black voters in general have not been big fans of Donald Trump. Donald Trump only won 6% of the black vote in 2016, so in general, black voters have not been hugely impartial towards him. But then last week, Kanye West has had this to say instead, which is that slavery for 400 years sounds like a choice. So you can kind of unpack that in whatever way you want. Anyone with even a passing knowledge of history knows that slavery at no point in America was ever a choice for any slave in this country. I suppose he was probably talking on a larger scale that maybe black Americans should have risen up against their masters, but I don't know. It has not gone well for him in the last week.
Wasn't he talking about like the fact that people are talking about it? Like that's a choice? Because I'm pretty sure that was like clarified.
Yeah, he did later say that, that clearly he understands that black people were enslaved by force.
Something about that we should be talking about other things than slavery. And that's what he meant by this.
It's possible. That's not the way I took the comment, but I could see maybe that's not. Because it's, Kanye saying, putting his mouth that happened before. Let's talk about our big story for today, which is impeachment, ladies and gentlemen. The impeachment of what American government official? Everyone's been guessing Trump all day today. No, but in fact, it is this man right here, Rod Rosenstein, who is the dad, or American. You tell me what that means.
Wait, I have a question. Who names their son Rod?
Rod's totally fine.
Rodney.
Rosenstein is the Deputy Attorney General. That means he is the second highest lawyer in all of America. Why is he being impeached, or at least asking for it from some Republicans in Congress? Let's back up the story. Here we go. First off, you got to know Donald Trump is right now being investigated by this man here, Robert Mueller. He is what's called a special investigator. He's been appointed, and because he was appointed to investigate Trump and the whole Russia scandal, he cannot be fired by the president. That is a big deal. There's only one other person Donald Trump can't fire.
The vice president?
And it's the vice president, right? So Trump, even if he wants to get rid of Mueller, and he's talked privately about wanting to do so, he cannot fire him directly. There's only one man who can fire the special counsel, and that would be the Attorney General of the United States, the top dog lawyer in America. This Keebler elf right here, whose name is Jeff Sessions. Now, Sessions can't actually fire him either because Sessions has stepped away from the trial. He says, I have connections to Russia, I wouldn't be impartial. He has recused himself and said, I'm stepping aside. And because he has stepped back, the man in charge of Robert Mueller is the Deputy Attorney General, and that's where we're at. This is the only guy who could fire the guy investigating the president right now. Can Donald Trump fire this man?
Yeah.
You certainly can. Yeah.
He looks like Mr. Idaho.
He does kind of look like Mr. Iden, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm never going to unsee that. Thanks for that. So, Donald Trump tweeted this last week, and what I want to turn your attention to is the very last line, which he said, at some point I will have no choice but to use the powers to grant to the presidency and get involved. Now, exactly what does that mean? It could, in fact, mean that he's thinking about firing the Deputy Attorney General. If he does that, the next one could fire Mueller, and then the whole Russia investigation is kind of off the rails, and that would be a very big step if that was to happen. It has not yet, but anything's possible. Now, Mueller seems to be getting close to the end of his investigation. It's going to end soon, in the next couple of months. And at the end of it, he may subpoena the president, which means you have to show up and do what?
Wonder.
You go under oath and testify. Now, in this case, if Donald Trump lies about anything under oath, that's perjury. He can go to prison for that. And there is this big question on whether we can subpoena the president or not. Could this happen? You don't actually know. So here's the thing. Being president means you're kind of immune to most trials and indictments while president. So we're not actually sure if this could happen or not. It never got to this point in Watergate because Nixon resigned before all this went down. So we don't honestly know what would happen if the president is subpoenaed or not. This is all brand new territory. Welcome to 2018. Here's where we're at, okay? At the same time, Donald Trump's lawyer, this man here, which is a real photograph of his lawyer named Ty Cobb, that's also his real name, and that is in fact his real mustache. Ty Cobb quit his job as a lawyer for the president. He is the third lawyer in the last month to quit working for Donald Trump, and as a result, Trump hired a new lawyer last week. This man right here, Rudy Giuliani. Now, Giuliani, and this is truly amazing, Giuliani got hired last Wednesday, and then Wednesday night, he went on Fox News to talk about the president, and basically he's the president's personal lawyer. He's the one that will be defending him in this whole Stormy Daniels case. And Trump has said for months that he had no idea there's a payment going on to Stormy Daniels, that he doesn't know this woman, they never had an affair, and there was never money from him that went to her. But on this interview, the same day Trump's lawyer was hired, he went on the interview and said, yep, that money came from Donald Trump. Trump paid his lawyer, the lawyer paid Stormy Daniels, and that's all fine. There's no big scandal here. Well, this was crazy. Now, Donald Trump then tweeted later that night, and he said right here that, yes, he paid money to Mr. Cohen, his lawyer, and that money had then gone to Stormy Daniels. And Trump is saying that while the payments did take place, that is huge, by the way, we didn't know that until last week, he says that there never was an affair. He says they're only paying Stormy Daniels because she was going to blackmail the campaign, that in fact nothing ever happened between her and Trump. Yes?
Let's say this all went down and he did have an affair. What does this have to do with him being president?
So, good question. So if he had an affair and cheated on his wife, nothing. There's actually no implication to what happens. But if his lawyer paid Stormy Daniels and that money came from him, also doesn't matter. Except if some of that money went through Donald Trump's campaign fund.
Which is
Now, if he got money from the campaign, that money went to his lawyer, that money went to Stormy Daniels, that is a felony you can go to jail for a very long time. So that's the big question. Can you link any of that money to the election campaign? And if so, that's where the trial will be.
He has so much money, and there was only like $100,000, right? So
Yeah. And so, yeah, that is the great. So that becomes the big question. Can you really trace the money that's raised for fundraising for a campaign and make sure it's the same money that hasn't been given to her? That's an excellent question. Exactly. So yeah, we don't know. Okay, on top of all this, Trump's doctor, Dr. Harold Bornstein, do you remember this man? All of my favorite people showed up last week. Do you remember this doctor? This is Trump's personal doctor. Do you remember all the incredible photographs of this doctor? He is back in the news again, and he has said, first off, remember he made a statement right before Donald Trump became president, and in this statement, Trump's doctor said that if elected, Mr. Trump will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. Yes?
Didn't Trump actually write that?
So here's the thing. Good question. So now this comes from a doctor. This is a doctor's report, and in the same report, the doctor also had this line as well. Trump's physical strength and stamina are extraordinary. Now, remember, Donald Trump is 70 years old, and at least on the border of being morbidly obese. So these were interesting claims to make. And in fact, what Bornstein said, as Ryan just mentioned, is that Bornstein yesterday said, I didn't write those things. He said, Donald Trump dictated the letter to me. I typed it up, but those were all Trump's words and not mine. Now, what has caused Bornstein to do all of this, to betray his personal clients? Well, according to Bornstein, 3 of Trump's bodyguards showed up at his office last week, came into the office and demanded that he hand over all of Donald Trump's medical records, which he then did. Why does Donald Trump want all of his medical records back? Why is he doing this?
Because everyone.
So here's the thing, and I mean, granted this is from Bornstein's point of view, but he says the reason for it is that 2 months ago, on television, he said that Donald Trump was taking a certain medication. And the medication that he said the president was taking was Propecia, which is basically a hair loss supplement to help men grow hair back on top of their head. Donald Trump saw this, got upset, and then sent his bodyguards to basically take all of the medical files back. There's no word from the White House on why Trump wanted the files back, but they confirmed that in fact it did happen. They did take all of the medical records back from this doctor. So, boy, it's just a whirlwind, ladies and gentlemen. Last story for you is very quick, but it's about this man in the middle. Do you remember this guy? We saw him last week, or 2 weeks ago, guys.
This is the French president.
He's the French president, Emmanuel Macron. And Macron went to Australia this weekend, where he met with the Prime Minister of Australia and his wife. And Macron, remember, speaks French as his first language, also speaks English as a second language. And he walked up to the Prime Minister and said, he was trying to flatter the Prime Minister to say, your wife is delightful. And what he said was, your wife looks delicious. Which is a bit of a snafu for 2 world leaders meeting for the first time. Just imagine someone walks up to you, your wife is delicious. Like, how do you even respond to that comment? And he probably didn't even realize the implication at the time. Macron, by the way, is married to this woman here, Brigitte Macron. And Macron is 40 years old. Bridget is 65 years old. Can you believe that? I didn't know that. There's a 25-year age. She looks pretty good for 65, but 25-year gap is. I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was like, that would be like me being married to a woman who is 63 years old. That is what the gap is. It'd be like you marrying someone who's 42, basically. So that is a big gap in time, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Last thing I want to say, it's not current event related, but I took my kids to Chuck E. Cheese yesterday. And I bring this up because Chuck E. Cheese, which was it wasn't all that crowded. My wife was there. And we were there at Chuck E. Cheese, and at the end, it was the morning. So we were about to go home. And the lady behind the manager comes up and says, would you like, what?
I'm not on Tuesday.
How's my wife? We don't know that? It's my wife. It wasn't relevant.
Not part of current events. I don't know.
Can I tell my story now? Yeah. All right, thank you. So I'm there at Chuck E. Cheese with my wife and my 2 kids, and the manager comes up and says, if you'd like, we actually brought Chucky out so you can meet your children. And I was like, oh, that's really cute. And I kid you not, I was like, where is Chucky? And she pointed, she's like, just down there. And there was this empty part of the restaurant with half the lights turned out. And they brought out this one chair, and Chucky's just sitting there on this chair. I took a photo of it so you can see this guy, this mouse, staring down the hallway. I'm not joking. He looks towards my kids. He does this. And my son, who was 8 years old, turned to me and said, no. And then just walked the other way. It was terrifying. Terrifying. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine. All right, we're done. We have to get